Hi everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. After more than a year cut off from transatlantic flights, we're extremely excited to be joined today by Bob Schumacher from United Airlines. Bob is the Director of Sales for the UK, Ireland, Israel, and South Africa for the airline, and today he's going to be talking to us about United Airlines' new flights between Johannesburg and Newark in New York City that are launching this week. Thanks so much for joining us today, Bob.
Sarah, thank you. Pleasure. And thank you everyone else for joining us. Thrilled to be talking about this.
Great. Well, maybe let's start with talking about the new flights. It's a daily service. It's starting this week. Why are you launching it in June? Why not later in the year or early in the year? Why was this the date that was decided on?
Yes, good question, Sarah. As many of your readers and listeners know, we are not new to South Africa. We've already had one foray in with our seasonal Cape Town service, which we started at the end of 2019 and ran through to the end of the season in March of last year. So we've really dipped our toe in the water. We're obviously very interested, as you know, and we see the Johannesburg market as a slightly different one to Cape Town. Cape Town, we know, and you of course all know better, is a strongly seasonal market, difficult perhaps to do it 12 months of the year. Johannesburg we look at as being very different. We believe that sort of perfect blend, if you will, of business travel that will populate probably the front ends of the aeroplane, as well as the high yield leisure that will take those seats too, but also that the leisure market is significant also through Johannesburg, particularly to the parks. And so we believe that that underpins a 7-day-a-week year-round service, which we're launching westbound from Johannesburg on Saturday.
That's wonderful. So there's still quite a lot of travel restrictions for South Africans at the moment. A number of countries sort of aren't allowing us in and out due to the South African variant. So initially, do you expect that the flight is going to be filled with a lot of inbound travelers like from the States to South Africa, or do you think that there will be quite a strong mix of South Africans also traveling outbound in the first few months?
That's a good question, Sarah. I'm sure, as many know, that we're a huge American brand, or a huge international brand, and one of the largest carriers globally. So we have the beauty, if you like, of having a very strong, large domestic marketplace, which is some 320 million Americans. So we would see from the beginning a very strong domination of US point of sale, as we call it. But over time, we want to probably not equalize it, but we want to certainly distribute across the two markets more evenly. And that will depend in this strange world that we're living in at the moment on border restrictions and the nuances within border restrictions and testing and everything else. So we are underpinned, if you like, Sarah, by the fact that we have a very big US domestic marketplace that connects through this hub of ours, which I'm sure we'll talk about at Newark, and has the ability to fill that flight. We also have, and it shouldn't be overlooked, the opportunity for cargo. We realize there's a strong cargo market between the US and South Africa and vice versa. And candidly, that underpins a lot of our flying during this crisis. United, we've done some 11,000 cargo flights, just operating with cargo. It's just become so important because all of those airplanes that used to go back and forth from so many places aren't doing that, but they carried a belly load of cargo, quite literally. And we'll be doing that into your market in Johannesburg as well. Strong cargo market for us.
Fantastic. Okay. And then obviously, Johannesburg is somewhat of a hub to Southern Africa. Do you imagine that there will be quite a lot of American travelers visiting, flying via Johannesburg and onwards into Southern Africa? Is there some demand there?
Well, we've done our slide rule calculations and perhaps a bit more, and we would probably see around 10% of the load, maybe just a little less than that, going into the heartland of Africa, and that will obviously, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. We realise that the schedule, which of course optimizes. If you're travelling west, you get into New York at first thing in the morning and have the whole of the US at your fingertips, really, for the first connection wave. Of course, the converse to that, and just scheduling the aeroplane, has us coming fairly late into Johannesburg, which typically will mean in many cases an overnight stay before being able to transfer from. So I think that'll keep a slight lid on the amount of connecting traffic. But by the same token, I think after a transatlantic flight, many will want to overnight or stay perhaps a few days in Johannesburg before going on. So whilst we'll expect 10% or so of the passenger load coming this way, coming east to connect, going west, we'll expect something like 70% of our customer base, i.e. coming out of South Africa, to go on to other destinations beyond New York.
Okay, and obviously you're flying into New York. What other sort of destinations do you think will be attractive for the South African traveller visiting the States?
Well, the US, I think if we were all put into a darkened room and asked, where would you like to be in the US? New York typically comes out as number one. But then very quickly, and it just depends on where you are in life, I guess. If you've got a young family, Florida is, of course, a huge attraction. And the attractions down there, which are now all open again, of course, in Florida, make Orlando and Miami big destinations. The West Coast is always a favorite from anyone traveling from this side of the Atlantic. So San Francisco and LA, where we have hubs in both cities. Ever more increasing is Denver and the whole of the Rockies and the mountain and the wilderness experience, very strong. But you can never overlook Las Vegas. That is a huge destination for anyone heading that way. And what I continue, and I've been working for the carrier for a very long time, the US just has so much to offer. And it just has, it almost has all seasons on a day, wherever you want to go. It has all different climates, it has different topography, it has cities, it has wonderful open spaces. It's just a great place to take a family or to go on as an individual. And of course, it has the centers of commerce too, which we all know about, whether it's New York or whether it's the capital in Washington, and all the cities in between. So a great variety of opportunity to discover in the US. And we serve 70 of those points non-stop out of Newark, New York.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, I mean, that brings me to my last question. You're flying into Newark, and JFK, I think, is sometimes maybe the slightly better known airport. Why Newark? Why Newark? What is the advantage of flying in there?
It's a great question, Sarah, and one which we have historically been having to raise the flag for, and now no longer. Newark, historically for the airline United merged with Continental Airlines back in 2010, and that was the international hub for Continental Airlines. And Newark is just over the bridge in New Jersey. It is better connected with public transport to downtown Manhattan than JFK ever will be. You can get on a train and within 30 minutes, you're at Penn Station, 42nd Street. And that is the simplest and easiest way to do it. Or you can jump in a cab, of course, as well. So the beauty of Newark was back in the day and remains today is the connectivity that it can afford. JFK is a very congested, not talking in the absolute real time at the moment, although it's growing back very strongly now. But Newark has been the airport where we've been able to build a network like no other carrier in New York. There are more connections from Newark on United than there are on any other carrier from JFK or even JFK LaGuardia mixes. So it can all be done in one airport. It can typically be done across one terminal and Terminal C. And that airport went through a revamp rather inauspiciously timed in 2001. But they got on and did it despite the events of that year. And it is really a ship-shape airport, which anyone would want to connect through compared to some of the others, which still are somewhat long in the tooth and being gentrified all the time. So we're very proud to be an operator at Newark. It offers the connectivity that the international traveller needs.
That sounds so wonderful. You have me raring to go.
Yes, we'll take you, Sarah.
It's time. It's been enough time at home now. But thank you so much for joining us. And we wish you so much luck with your new flights. And thank you for connecting South Africa.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for the opportunity. And thanks to your readership, your listeners. Thank you to the trade for supporting us. We wouldn't be doing it on our own. And it's vital that we work together to make this a success. And I'm quite sure it will be.